On February 1st, President Donald Trump's National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, put Iran on notice.
Good afternoon, everyone. Recent Iranian actions involving a provocative ballistic missile launch and an attack against a Saudi naval vessel conducted by Iran-supported Houthi militants underscore what should have been clear to the international community all along about Iran's destabilizing behavior across the entire Middle East. The recent ballistic missile launch is also in defiance of UN Security Council Resolution 2231, which calls upon Iran not to undertake any activity related to ballistic missiles designed to be capable of delivering nuclear weapons, including launches using such ballistic missile technology. These are just the latest of a series of incidents in the past 6 months in which Houthi forces that Iran has trained and armed have struck Emirati and Saudi vessels and threatened United States and allied vessels transiting the Red Sea. In these and other similar activities, Iran continues to threaten U.S. friends and allies in the region. The Obama administration failed to respond adequately to Tehran's malign actions, including weapons transfers, support for terrorism, and other violations of international norms. The Trump administration condemns such actions by Iran that undermine security, prosperity, and stability throughout and beyond the Middle East, and which places American lives at risk. President Trump has severely criticized the various agreements reached between Iran and the Obama administration, as well as the United Nations, as being weak and ineffective. Instead of being thankful to the United States in these agreements, Iran is now feeling emboldened. As of today, we are officially putting Iran on notice. Thank you.
Senior Trump administration officials said after Flynn's remarks that all options are on the table, including military action. Trump said as much when he held discussions with Harley-Davidson executives at the White House the day after Flynn's news conference.
President, military action off the table in Iran?
Nothing's, honestly, nothing is off the table. I haven't eased anything. Well, I haven't eased anything.
Mike Pence, Trump's vice president, said Iran should take the threat of military action seriously.
The president took executive action on Iran yesterday, imposed those new sanctions. And we saw General Flynn say Iran is on notice. What does that mean exactly?
It means we're watching.
What are we watching for?
It means Iran would do well to look at the calendar and realize there's a new president in the Oval Office. And Iran would do well not to test the resolve of this new president.
The administration, Republican members of Congress, and the establishment media, however, are ignoring the reality of the situation. The Iranian missile test did not violate UN Security Council Resolution 2231, which endorsed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. It was finalized in July of 2015 by China, France, Germany, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom, the United States, the High Representative of the European Union, and the Islamic Republic of Iran. Iran agreed to reduce its stockpile of low-enriched uranium and place most of its centrifuges in storage in exchange for removing sanctions. The deal, however, does not prohibit the test of missiles. Previous UN resolutions did, but these were nullified by 2231. There's language in the resolution about ballistic missiles, but it's non-binding. In other words, there can't be a violation of the deal because no obligation exists. Details, however, are irrelevant to Trump and Congress. Following the test, the administration announced new sanctions on Iran.
Today, President Trump imposed new sanctions on Iran after a ballistic missile test. The test was not a violation of the recent nuclear deal, but it was a provocation.
It also announced it may designate Iran's Revolutionary Guards as a terror group. House Speaker Paul Ryan demanded a new round of sanctions in reaction to Iran's missile test.
So I think they need to know that they're going to be held to account, because if we don't do that, then they're going to go off and do all these other things. Remember, they are a belligerent force in the Middle East. Look at what they're trying to do to destabilize the region with all their proxies. Look at what they're doing to finance terrorism, their human rights abuses, testing ballistic missiles. You see, they write on the side of their ballistic missiles in Hebrew, Farsi, and English, death to Israel and death to America. This is not a peaceful nation.
Senate Foreign Relations Chair Senator Bob Corker said his committee is working on sanctions. Bush administration UN Ambassador John Bolton has long called for direct confrontation with Iran over its imaginary nuke program.
Well, I think Michael Flynn's statement is extremely significant. It says, really, for the first time in an official statement in about 8 years, that the United States is on to Iran's game. And it does put them on notice that this administration is not the last administration, in case they hadn't noticed it.
Iran said the new sanctions violate the deal signed in 2015. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said his country needs the missiles for self-defense. He put it in the context of the Iran-Iraq war.
You were not the subject of 8 years of war, where your cities were showered with missiles, carrying chemical warheads, and you did not have a single missile to retaliate so that maybe Saddam Hussein would stop. We went to one country after another begging, insisting, begging for a single Scud missile to defend our people. Begging. Now, you want us to get a few dollars to Iran to abandon defending our people. We really hope and wish for a day when nobody will spend any money on any of these weapons.
The latest round of lies and mischaracterizations about Iran underscore the fact the new administration plans to continue the neocon hardline on Iran. A group of neocons and fellow travelers gathered to discuss how the Trump administration might continue the anti-Iran agenda. United Against Nuclear Iran is chaired by the Zionist Joe Lieberman, and members include Dennis Ross, Jeb Bush, former Mossad boss Tamir Prado, UK MI6 head Richard Dearlove, and John Bolton, among others. In addition to dumping the Iran nuke deal, the group has called for sinking Iran's ships, attacking its advisors in Syria, and imposing more punitive sanctions. Now that Obama is out of the White House, the neocons are pressing the Trump administration to step up hostilities. They have an ally in the administration, General Mike Flynn. In 2016, Flynn co-wrote a book with an influential neocon, Michael Ledeen, titled The Field of Fight: How We Can Win the Global War Against Radical Islam and Its Allies. The book says the U.S. must engage in a multi-generational war against Islam. According to the authors, the war will be on par with World War II and the Cold War. Flynn doesn't consider Islam a religion and has characterized it as a cancer.
So we have a problem. It's like cancer. I've gone through cancer in my own life. Okay, so it's like cancer, and it's like a malignant cancer, though, in this case. It has metastasized.
Instead of singling out specific jihadi groups as the problem, he has indicted the entire religion. Like the neocons, Flynn insists Iran poses a dire threat to the state of Israel. After the election, Israel approved of Flynn's appointment and the nomination of Mike Pompeo as director of the CIA. Pompeo is known as a staunch supporter of Israel and has praised its prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. He has declared his support for rolling back the deal with Iran and has called for extending and expanding sanctions. Flynn also believes the United States shouldn't support a peace deal between Israel and the Palestinians. He said peace is not possible so long as Palestinians resist occupation. This is a departure from the policies of both the Bush and Obama administrations. Bush insisted regime change in the Middle East would defeat radical Islam, while Obama said diplomacy and dialogue would defeat it. Despite talk and public relations gimmicks, however, both administrations continued to target Islamic countries. Bush invaded Afghanistan and Iraq. Obama continued Bush's wars in the Middle East and radically expanded his drone assassination program. Trump and Flynt's criticism of Islam hark back to the days of the Bush administration when neocons were calling the shots. Soon after the invasion of Iraq, then Deputy Defense Secretary Paul Wolfowitz said he wanted to see an Islamic Reformation. Daniel Pipes of the Philadelphia-based Middle East Forum echoed Wolfowitz when he said the ultimate goal of the war on terror would be to modernize Islam. Pipes said the effort would not be limited to the Middle East, but should also be accomplished in the West. The Bush-era neocons focused on taking down Muslim and Arab regimes and rejected the idea of a comprehensive peace in the Middle East. They sketched this out in the Clean Break document submitted to then Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. The document called for a joint effort between Israel, Jordan, and Turkey to contain, destabilize, and roll back the governments in Iraq, Syria, and Iran. Although the report was rejected by Netanyahu, it served as a manifesto and a template for the neocons after they gained power following the contested election of Bush in 2000. In 2007, former General Wesley Clark told Democracy Now! About a conversation he had while at the Pentagon, at the time controlled by the neocons.
I knew why, because I'd been through the Pentagon. Right after 9/11, about 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who had used to work for me, and one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
In retrospect, the establishment considered the neocon plan to destroy and balkanize the Middle East as a failure. After Obama was elected, the government decided to recast its efforts to destabilize the region as a humanitarian intervention. Obama expanded the wars to Syria and Yemen while defending Islam and refusing to call out jihadi terrorists by name. During the Obama years, the neocons changed their tune and concentrated on what they said is the threat posed not only by radical jihadists, but the very existence of Islam. The neocon Frank Gaffney is at the forefront of the movement to arouse hatred and fear, designed to further extend and expand the war on terror, and ultimately realize the objective of the Clean Break Plan, to destroy not only Arab and Muslim nations, but societies and cultures as well.
We have a chance to learn a lot and to understand far more fully the nature of the enemy and what is making him tick, namely Sharia. And in so doing, I hope we will establish once and for all that authoritative Islam is at war with us. Whether we choose to fight back or not, they are seeking and are clearly intent on achieving our destruction.
During the campaign, Trump cited propaganda from Gaffney's Center for Security Policy. He praised a Trump speech where the candidate said the West faces an existential threat from Islam. Gaffney is aligned with other neocon Islamophobes, including Pamela Geller, the president of the American Freedom Defense Initiative, which she co-founded with Robert Spencer. Geller, Gaffney, and the neocon Islamophobes were promoted by Trump advisor Steve Bannon when he hosted the radio show Breitbart News Daily. In early February, a film script written by Bannon surfaced. Called Destroying the Great Satan, the project focused on Bannon's belief the Judeo-Christian West is engaged in a global war against what he called jihadist Islamic fascism. The script envisions an Islamic republic imposed on the United States. In 2013, Bannon called for Christian militants to fight against Muslims.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict, of which if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, to really be able to not just stand with our beliefs, but to fight for our beliefs against this new barbarity that's starting, that we will literally eradicate everything that we've been bequeathed over the last 2,500 years.
If we can believe Trump's rhetoric, the destruction of Islam is a priority. So much so, he made it a centerpiece of his address during the inaugural ceremony on January 20th.
We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones, and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth.
It remains to be seen if Trump will move in a significant way against Iran, now the primary target in the war on Islam, formulated by his advisors, including Bannon, Flynn, and newly appointed Pentagon boss James Mad Dog Mattis. Trump tells us he will defer to Flynn on matters related to Iran and the Middle East. In his book, Flynn told us what to expect. Both Bannon and Flynn want to confront Islam head-on. However, at this point, it is not a foregone conclusion Trump will react to Iran militarily.
For just a small subscription fee, you can become a member of the NewsBud community and help keep this website running. Your subscription will provide you with full community access to exclusive content, including videos and articles from NewsBud's team of experts and analysts, as well as a members-only monthly newsletter from NewsBud's founder, Sibel Edmonds. Sign up today for full access at newsbud.com.